Okay, so the positives of working in the consulting industry are as follows. It's very intellectually stimulating. I thoroughly enjoyed it. You get the opportunity to travel a lot, so it's a young person's game. When you have a family and you have kids, it's very, very difficult. Although McKinsey does a very good job of making sure that all employees, for the most part, are in the office, their headquarters office, or their home office, sorry, every Friday, which is nice. And then the compensation is excellent post MBA school. For me, I did pre-MBA school, and the compensation wasn't that great. Okay, so the negatives of working in consulting or the hours are absolutely brutal, right? And FaceTime, unfortunately, is a necessity. You know, your FILO, I coined that term, which is first in, last out. Some clients hate you. They hate you because, who are you? Who are you, young punk, coming and tell us how to run our company? Or they feel threatened by you because you might recommend that their department restructure. And another negative of working in consulting is that there's a very long path to become partner. It takes years. Okay, so here's some resume tips for consulting gigs. And take a picture of this slide or go to those websites if you care and you want to get involved in this sector. And you can also go to an amazing website called Vault Reports, VAULT, reports.com. And they have these amazing guides you can buy, which will tell you everything you want to know about certain sectors or certain companies and how to interview and get jobs at certain companies, right? I say that networking is more important than that, but they're good guides as well. Okay. So let's talk now about management consulting frameworks, okay? So the first one I want to quickly talk about is the Boston Consulting Group Matrix, or the BCG Matrix. And BCG is an amazing strategy consulting firm, just like McKinsey and Bain. And in this matrix, on this axis, the x-axis, you've got low market share on one side, high market share on the other side. And on the y-axis, you've got low growth and high growth products. And so in these quadrants, if you have low market share and low growth, that's called a dog. That dog is adorable, by the way. If you have low growth and high market share, that's called a cash cow, right? If you've got low growth, if you've got high growth and low market share, that's called a question mark. We're not really sure about this product yet. It's new. And then if you got high growth and high market share, it's called a star product. And my kids saw this slide and they said, "Daddy, that star is from Super Mario Galaxy," which is a masterpiece of a game, by the way. Okay, anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about Apple. And I want you to put all these Apple products in the right quadrants. Okay, so let's talk about the iPod first. Where do you think the iPod goes? Okay, what quadrant? Right, well, that's obviously low growth. Not many people are buying iPods anymore, if at all. iPod Touch maybe. And they've got high market share. Okay. Next up, you've got the iPhone, which is high growth, high market share for now. Then you've got the BYOC, or Bring Your Own Computer, which for them is low market share, low growth. It's not really doing too much. And then you've got Apple TV, which is low market share, but kind of high growth. I've got the new one now at home, which is awesome. It's this, got this great remote where you can swipe through and you can talk to it. My kid said to it the other day, "Show me all movies that Tom Cruise is in." And boom, it came up. Plus you can download and play a lot of apps as well. It's like it makes your TV a massive iPad. It's awesome. You can tell I'm a techie. Okay. Next category we've got is the iTunes logo, which is the music with a circle around it. And that's actually in secular decline. They've got high share. I think Apple is the largest music seller in the world. But growth is very low because Pandora is cool. And then you've got, you've actually got Spotify, which is amazing. And there's a reason that Apple had to buy Beats, not for those big headphones, but because there's a streaming service embedded in Beats that will help them compete with Spotify longer term. By the way, why is it that younger generation likes bigger things? I always thought getting smaller was better, smaller devices. But earphones when I was younger were like this, and then they got smaller. And then the younger generation has these massive earphones. Maybe it sounds better. I don't know. All right, sorry, I digress. The last category is the iPad, which still has high share and high growth for now. Okay, great. So you're able to categorize each of those products within the Boston Consulting Group framework. Okay, great. So the next framework that we're going to look at is one that a lot of consulting firms use. It's called the SWOT analysis. And for those of you that watch HBO and watch Silicon Valley, that show, there's a funny episode on SWOT analysis. If you want to see it, just go to YouTube and do a search on Silicon Valley HBO and SWOT analysis. So SWOT analysis stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay, and you can categorize the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, or threats for a company in this nice simplistic framework. And so if you wanted to, you could do an analysis like this on Facebook. I'll leave that up to you. Next up, we've got a framework called the product life cycle. And this one's pretty cool. This allows you to kind of analyze where your product or company or service is from a life cycle perspective. On the x-axis, we have time. On the y-axis, we have revenue revenue. So on the x-axis, we have time. And the first category is called the introductory phase. And that's where revenue growth is low, but it's starting to accelerate. Okay. The next phase we've got is the growth phase, right? Where growth is really accelerating, kicking into high gear. And then we've got the maturity phase where growth is actually decelerating, okay? And then we've got the decline phase, decline, where revenue growth is actually contracting, okay? And most products go through this life cycle process. And so let's do this for 4 different products. And they might be hard to see. You'll see the images there on the left-hand side of the slide, but they are as follows. There's Microsoft Windows. There's the Apple Watch. Not as good as Banana Watch, but anyway, it's fine. Then you've got, and this one's tough to read, I apologize. It's the IBM mainframe computer. And at the bottom, you've got the Tesla. Okay, so where do you think Windows goes? Okay, Microsoft Windows. Okay, so I would argue it's in the maturity stage where growth is low or just about to start declining. Where's the Apple Watch go? Well, the Apple Watch is still in the introductory phase. We don't know if this product is going to be successful yet. I actually bought it and I stopped using it because it was too hard to read. Maybe I'm getting older, my eyes don't work as well. It was also too complicated. There was 2 or 3 different ways to put in data. It was too complicated for me. I don't think Steve Jobs would have released this product, the Apple Watch, because it's not simplistic. You know, the iPhone works because it's simplicity. There's one button on it. Same thing with the iPad. Anyway. Next up, we have the IBM mainframe. Where do you think that grows? Is that growth or in decline? Well, it's in decline for obvious reasons. And then lastly, the Tesla. The Tesla is in an incredible growth phase right now. You see them everywhere here in California. Everybody wants to get one, but there's a long waiting list to get one. Okay, so that's the product life cycle. Great. So, and it's applicable to not just products, but companies as well. You can talk about companies being in the introductory phase or the growth phase or the maturity phase or the decline phase as well. Next up, we have the Porter 5 Forces model. And I put the Apple logo in here because you can analyze Apple or any company from 5 forces perspective. You can look at the competitive environment, substitute products like Android for Apple products, new entrants. Okay, you can look at buyer power. You can look at supplier power as well. And you can analyze any company you want using that framework. Okay, great. So other qualitative stuff that's important to talk about. Barriers to entry are important. Whenever you're analyzing a company, is it easy for competitors to get in the marketplace? What are the barriers to entry? Sometimes it can be patents. Sometimes it can be the ability to produce stuff at scale. So that other companies can't produce at low cost like you do. Or you can look at risks. And I've covered this quite a bit, but it's so important to be able to leverage sec.gov. Okay, so what you can do is you can type up any ticker or company name you want. So Microsoft, let's type it up. And there's the 10K. And you can find out risks on this company. You want to find out a weakness of a company, go to sec.gov and search on the risk factors. Or you can call that company's competitor and ask that competitor what the company's risks are, the biggest weaknesses of. And companies love to ditch their competition. But go to sec.gov and just do a search on risks, and you'll see a lot of examples there. Okay, quantitative stuff. I mentioned this before, but I always want you to look for trends in the data. You know, every chart tells a story, and I want to revisit this again. So With Oracle, we saw revenue growth was amazing for a couple of years there, but it's only because they came out of the abyss of 2008 and revenue growth kind of recovered. But they were also buying many, many companies, which is very dangerous because Wall Street now expects them to buy a big company every year. Otherwise, actual revenue growth will go negative. We talked about the price earnings chart of Oracle, and we analyzed the data and saw that growth was actually contracting for Oracle. And that's why Wall Street actually assigned a lower valuation on the company. So you got a 10-year price earnings multiple contraction. Okay, worth repeating. We have negative organic growth for Oracle. They've done $50 billion in acquisitions since 2004. And some of Oracle's many issues, right? And consultants would tell Oracle this as well. And you, the McKinsey consultant, for example, could tell Oracle this. Oracle has a one neck to choke thesis. What the heck does that mean? Well, Oracle bought so many companies, right? They have a database, which is their core product, which they organically built. And it's a great product. And then they bought infrastructure software from a company called BEA, and then application software. They bought tons of companies like PeopleSoft, Siebel, Hyperion. And then they bought a hardware company called Sun Microsystems, and they tried to sell all that stuff to customers so that customers would only have one neck to choke if they had support issues. And that's an issue. That's an issue because a lot of people think that Oracle might be getting complacent now. And maybe they'll stop innovating after they buy these products. And it gives them pricing power to potentially raise prices, okay? Another problem with Oracle, as with all big tech companies, is that it's just too big. It's too big. And, Larry Ellison is kind of stepping aside, and he's an incredible genius. And I always get worried when the founder leaves or is a little bit less engaged. And I'll cover that in much more detail, not on Oracle, but generically speaking during the last class. And again, there's no organic growth, really. Oracle's not growing, right? Although revenue might appear to be growing, it's only because they've made acquisitions. Okay. Oracle's had a failure to be able to innovate. It's gotten too big. And aside from the database, they really haven't innovated anything of substance since maybe the 90s. There's also margin compression issues. Margins are getting a little bit worse because they're getting into the hardware industry, right? They bought Sun Microsystems back in 2009. And they're just becoming less relevant because they don't have as much of a focus on cloud as other companies. Okay, it's not their fault. They're just getting big. That's all. So Oracle today is in secular decline. So I'm going to have another networking workshop right now. Relationships are more important than product knowledge. I know I've said that over and over again, but I want to talk about getting a job again using LinkedIn. Okay, so did anybody or did you set up informational meetings yet? If you haven't, I'm begging you, please do so. Please try harder. I promise you this will help you out tremendously in terms of getting a job or getting more customers or making a career change into a career you're more passionate about. Leverage LinkedIn a lot. Okay. New topic. Interviewing executives and how to tell if they're lying. Okay. When I worked at Citadel, which is a great hedge fund, management at Citadel brought in 25-year CIA and FBI veterans to train us how to tell if business executives are lying. And it was awesome. And here's some tricks. This doesn't always work, but here's some tricks. If you ask somebody a question, and you're looking for a yes or no answer, and this person rambles like crazy when they're answering your question, they're probably lying, unless they usually ramble. And it works with kids a lot too. I never looked for that in my kids, but if you wanted to, you could tell by the nature of them rambling or not. Look at me rambling now. All right. Secondly, if you ask somebody a question and when they answer, they look away, just briefly. If that's not in their demeanor, sometimes it's a confidence thing. People are just a little bit less confident. But if they look away when they answer you, there's a good chance they're lying. Okay. And another way is if you ask them a question and they cover their mouth when they're lying, or when they're answering the question, then there's a good chance they're lying. Like, I'm really enjoying teaching you right now. Just kidding. I do love this. And the last one is if they shake their foot a little bit when they're answering a question. And that one doesn't always work because if you've had too much caffeine, whatever, you might be a little bit nervous. So anyway, those are just 4 little tips to look for. And it's really important when you're assessing management teams because You won't trust everybody you do business with. And if your gut tells you not to trust somebody, go with your gut always. Right? And that's the qualitative side of business analysis. And so in terms of the 140 character class recap, we talked about qualitative tools, investment frameworks used in management consulting, like the Boston Consulting Group Matrix, the product life cycle, the SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We talked about risks. We talked about using SEC.gov. We talked about networking. Again, relationships are always more important than product knowledge. Thanks a lot.